Hello and welcome to a new short series where I'll be looking at games that originated on particular computers, sometimes quite surprisingly. We're kicking off with the Apple II, first released in 1977, which was a significant milestone in home computers. It saw several iterations, including the Apple IIe in 1983, the Apple II GS released in 1986, which seriously upped the game with a 16-bit processor and impressive colour palette and resolution, and was incidentally one of the first PCs I ever used as a kid. And the final model in the Apple II series, the IIc Plus. Despite it not getting much attention in retro gaming circles these days, the Apple II spawned a few games and game franchises, some very well known indeed. Let's have a look at 6 of them. Castle Wolfenstein was released for the Apple II in 1981, developed by Muse Software. This was a maze shooter with a heavy emphasis on stealth, and is regarded as the basis of the stealth game genre. Set during World War II, you're an Allied spy who's been taken prisoner by the SS in Castle Wolfenstein. You manage to break free and must escape the castle after stealing the Germans' battle plans. The castle itself features 60 rooms over 5 floors, each represented as a single screen. Rooms are viewed from a top-down maze-like perspective, although the player character and enemies are shown side-on. As you're exploring the castle looking for the plans, you'll encounter SS guards, and the main idea is to avoid them using stealth and cunning. You have a gun and limited ammo, and can collect grenades. Grenades can kill SS guards, and can also be used to destroy parts of the environment. If guards are alerted to your presence, they'll attack or try to recapture you, so keeping out of the way was of paramount importance. You can optionally kill the guards, but at the risk of alerting others, and you can even hold them up to loot items. Uniforms can be found which let you impersonate the guards. After you escape the castle, you're awarded a higher military rank, and each rank brings with it a new difficulty level for the next playthrough. After originating on the Apple II, Castle Wolfenstein was ported to DOS, the Commodore 64 and the Atari 8-bit family. A sequel was released in 1984 called Beyond Castle Wolfenstein. Unlike the original, it was developed for both the Apple II and the C64. Castle Wolfenstein also inspired id's 1992 first-person shooter Wolfenstein 3D, a landmark title in gaming history, and a series that has seen several sequels and spin-offs, the most recent being in 2019. Castle Wolfenstein not only inspired Wolfenstein 3D, but influenced an entire genre of stealth games in the 90s. The Bard's Tale was released for the Apple II in 1985, produced by Interplay and distributed by EA. Its official title is Tales of the Unknown Volume 1, but is more widely known by its subtitle, The Bard's Tale. This is a role-playing game in which you form a slapdash band of up to 6 characters, made up of a bunch of amateurs. An evil wizard has taken over the town and plunged it into a never-ending winter which isolates it, making help impossible. Also, he's made all the town's warriors disappear, so who's left to stop him? Well, pretty much young warriors, fledgling wizards and bards. It was your straightforward dungeon crawler, with your party fighting creatures, exploring dungeons and levelling up. Despite it looking primitive by today's standards, The Bard's Tale was well regarded for its graphics, with its pseudo 3D and detailed character portraits. The turn-based combat was depicted in text only rather than graphically, and magic played a big part, as well as the use of the bards, whose songs would grant the team permanent benefits, and some puzzles would even require the use of the songs. Although seemingly primitive, let's consider that this was 1985, so The Bard's Tale was quite the landmark title for the genre. The Bard's Tale was ported to Amiga, Atari ST, Commodore 64, DOS, Amstrad CPC, Mac, ZX Spectrum, NEC PC 9801 and the Nintendo Entertainment System, and much later a remastered version was released for Windows and Xbox One. 2 sequels followed, as well as the Bard's Tale construction kit in 1991, which allowed people to create their own dungeon crawlers using the game's engine. There was a run of 8 novels based on the Bard's Tale released throughout the 90s, and a third sequel, The Bard's Tale 4, was released in 2018 after a successful 2015 Kickstarter campaign. Probably the least familiar game on the list, Repton was a side-scrolling shooter designed for the Apple II, published by Sirius Software in 1983. Not to be confused with 1985's Repton from Superior Software, which originated on the BBC Micro, this is much like Defender. Set on the planet Repton, you pilot a ship flying over a city that's been attacked by aliens. Your ship is equipped with a standard laser shot and has a limited number of smart bombs that will destroy all the enemies on screen. Like Defender, enemy alien ships fly across the screen and missiles fire vertically from the ground. A radar screen at the bottom shows a map of the play area, indicating the location of enemy craft. The aliens will try to establish a base on the planet's surface. If successful, a nuke detonates which destroys the planet's surface, and the action continues underground, where the map no longer works. The aim here is to destroy the power source for the alien base, then it's on to the next stage. Repton was ported to the Commodore 64 and Atari 8-bits. Ultima is a series that's very highly regarded among DOS gamers, particularly RPG fans. The first 5 games in the series were designed on and for the Apple II. These entries were Ultima 1, The First Age of Darkness in 1981, initially known simply as Ultima; Ultima 2, The Revenge of the Enchantress in 1982; Ultima 3, Exodus in 1983; Ultima 4, Quest for the Avatar in 1985; and Ultima 5, Warriors of Destiny in 1988. The original Ultima was created for the Apple II by Richard Garriott, released in 1981. You take on the role of the Stranger, who endeavours to stop an evil wizard from enslaving the world using a gem of immortality. Find the gem and destroy it, thus putting an end to his wicked plan. The land is presented as a top-down open world area, but the viewpoint switches to first person at certain points. These include the dungeon crawling sections, which use this very primitive line-drawn pseudo 3D format, and the space flight sections, wherein you're flying through starfields shooting at these enemy ships that look suspiciously like TIE fighters, although it's of note that these space shooter sections solely appeared in the first game. Despite having fantasy RPG roots, the gameplay does incorporate sci-fi elements such as time travel and the aforementioned space travel. Otherwise, the games are presented in pretty much the same way, just progressively more refined. There are 4 character classes, each having varying stats that we've become accustomed to with RPGs, like charisma, strength and agility. Stats can be increased by completing quests, acquired in castles across the world's 4 continents. The first 5 Ultima games were ported to DOS, Commodore 64 and several Japanese home computers. Episodes 1 to 4 were also ported to the Atari 8-bits. Episodes 2 to 5 to the Amiga and Atari ST. Episodes 2 to 4 to Mac. Episode 4 to the Sega Master System. Episode 5 to the Commodore 128. And both 4 and 5 to Nintendo's NES. After Ultima 5, which was the last game to be developed on the Apple II, all subsequent releases were developed on PC. Aside from being a landmark title for role-playing games, Ultima was the first truly open world game, and its influence has spread far and wide throughout gaming history. The main Ultima series ran until Episode 9 in 1999 and has spawned several hugely successful spin-offs, including the groundbreaking Ultima Underworld and MMORPG Ultima Online in 1997, which was an unexpected hit. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Prince of Persia, but perhaps fewer are aware that it was designed for the Apple II. Jordan Mechner had designed Karateka for Broderbund for release on the Apple II, and they then gave him creative freedom to design his own concept. He began working on this new game in 1985. The result was 1989's Prince of Persia, a cinematic platform game that utilised rotoscoping for the fluid character animations. Inspired by films like Robin Hood and Indiana Jones, Prince of Persia is set in ancient Persia and sees the player making his way through an evil Jafar's palace in hope of rescuing a princess. He leaps and climbs his way through the palace's many rooms, avoiding all manner of deadly traps and fighting the Jafar's guards with his trusty scimitar, and you only have one real-time hour in which to save her. You might think that 1989 was very late for an Apple II game, and you'd be right. It didn't sell a great number on the Apple II, but thankfully its critical success led to it being ported to many systems where it saw a wide commercial success. The original Prince of Persia was officially ported to, wait for it, DOS, Amiga, Atari ST, Amstrad CPC, several home Japanese computers of course, TurboGrafx-16, Game Boy and Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, Super Nintendo, Mega CD, NES, Mac, Game Gear, Mega Drive and more recently iOS. The Prince of Persia franchise is pretty much a household name these days and has achieved huge success. As well as its many ports, it spawned several sequels and spin-offs as recent as 2018, comics and graphic novels, a film in 2010 and even Lego sets. It was the first true cinematic platformer and inspired many other similar games in the early 90s. Might and Magic is a series that most gamers have at least heard of. The first game in the series, titled Might and Magic Book 1 The Secret of the Inner Sanctum, or just Might and Magic, was designed for the Apple II and released in 1986. It was designed by John Van Caneghem and was self-published under the name New World Computing. Might and Magic is a dungeon crawling RPG with a fantasy medieval setting featuring knights and magic, but incorporates elements of science fiction much like Ultima. Taking place in the fictional world of Varn, 6 adventurers set out on a quest to discover the secret of the titular Inner Sanctum. The world features forests, castles, caverns and cities, and your merry band of adventurers explore the world, fighting enemies and monsters along the way. The world is presented in a small first-person window, much like the Bard's Tale which we saw earlier, and again the turn-based combat is text only. There are 6 character classes, each having their own stats, very similar to the traditional D&D format. The original Might and Magic was ported to DOS, Mac, Commodore 64, several Japanese home computers and received NES and PC Engine CD ports in 1992. Although the first 3 main series games got console ports, subsequent episodes have been strictly PC only. It received 9 sequels, the last being Might and Magic 10 Legacy in 2014. It had several successful spin-offs, most famously Heroes of Might and Magic, which ran from 1990 to 2015 with numerous console iterations. The Might and Magic franchise was owned by New World Computing, which was bought by the 3DO company in 1996. When the 3DO company went bust in 2003, Ubisoft bought the rights to Might and Magic for $1.3 million and have since released several titles under that umbrella. So that was 6 games or franchises that started out on the Apple II. Look out for more episodes in the series in future, where I'll be looking at games that began life on other home computers. Thanks for watching.